Hey, Rick.
Hi, Dean.
Okay, so Rick, here's our hypothetical. Okay, uh, you just started a 1 year fractional CMO engagement. Today's day one. We're going to talk about the first 90 days. In those first 90 days, what do your clients tend to like come to you with as a problem? Like, Rick, like here's the big thing, or here's what we need to deal with first. Or if there's a problem that you normally expect, even if the business doesn't see it yet and you go hunting for it, like that will be fine too. So like what sort of problem gets tackled first? And maybe before answering that, let folks know a little bit about you.
Yes, thank you, Dean. My name is Rick Dark. I'm fractional CMO. Got a few other businesses that I work with as well. But my main focus has been, I grew up in the ad agency world. So I started out life as a graphic designer, worked my way up to be a creative director, and then kind of jumped over to the marketing side. And then wish I hadn't left the creative side, but anyway, that was where the path took me. And I've been basically just building my business, client after client, to where I am now. And that history, actually, to answer your first question, it's very interesting to me how similar a lot of problems are, at least initial problems. Whenever I start an engagement, it's always around, we need to get more awareness of our brand. We
Yeah.
need to increase revenue, right? It's always those first three things which start in the conversation. But what I've found is just through active listening and then being able to really start to ask some intrusive questions about, well, what does that mean? If somebody's talking about, well, our products are just not selling, let's dive into that. So I want to get into the weeds of things very quickly, because 9 times out of 10, it ends up not being the initial problem they're looking to solve. It's a whole host of other problems, internal and external, that lead to the ultimate engagement and what my work will then be.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Peter, hey, how you doing?
Hey, excited to be here.
Peter, so same question. Let's keep it at sort of like the fractional CMO level for a second, right? So like you're just starting off. It's day one. You're here for a year, and is there a problem you typically encounter, or a problem the business can't articulate yet, but when you get there, you realize it's kind of the same thing? And same again. Go ahead and let folks know about you.
Sure, I'll start off with the problem that CEOs are not aware of when they first engage me, and then the introduction. Most CEOs come to me and they say they are overwhelmed with too much marketing information and they don't know how to turn it into revenue.
Right.
I try to simplify those into goals and strategy and tactics and teach them to make more money doing less. That's the reason that they start off with me. And as a way of introduction, my name is Peter Murphy-Lewis. I'm the CEO and founder of a fractional CMO company called StrategicPete.com, and we work with zoos and banks and investment platforms and AI and SaaS.
Okay. Hey, Peter, let's take it up to the CEO level then for a second. And I want to ask sort of a backwards question. In your experience, companies, let's say they sign up, they make the commitment for a year for a fractional CMO. If they're going to waste that money, how do they waste it?
Waste it in what way? Can you clarify?
How do they waste the budget that they put aside for their fractional CMO? How do they, not enable that person to do something? How do they try to get something done that shouldn't have been done? Like, how do they waste their fractional CMO money instead of like fully getting maximum value out of it?
Telling the fractional CMO what they think they should do before they diagnose the problem.
Yeah.
That is the fastest way that I see the waste going, or not being available, or not making their customers available. I always ask, I need access to your happy superfan customers as soon as possible so I can 10x that, and you can relax and cash the checks and make more revenue. If you don't make yourself available or make those customers available, it's hard for me to help you.
Fair enough. And Rick, what do you think? Like, how do companies sort of squeeze the last penny of value out of the 1 year they're going to have with that fractional CMO? Or how do they waste the money?
Yeah, so in my experience, the waste has always been when, a lot of what I do is around the concept of collaboration, right? Collaboration, bringing people together, breaking down silos. any large corporation or even a small business for that matter, they have a silo operation just because it's the easiest way to compartmentalize things, and people are very comfortable working in silos. I'm very open with CEOs when we talk about an engagement to the point where, look, I'm very honest and say, if you're not willing to accept change, if your people in the silos are not willing to collaborate and accept change, then first of all, we're going to waste a year. Secondly, you're not going to see a result. So you have to have that internal collaboration, which is paramount to the success of any engagement and whatever the actual outcome is that they want.
Okay. So let's invert sort of our hypothetical once again, and let's talk about existing marketing folks. So we've talked about it from the fractional CMO angle, talked about it from the CEO or company angle, not wasting the money. Let's say that like one of your best friends, who's also a fractional CMO, says, "Hey, Rick, I've signed this 1-year gig, and I got to show up there tomorrow, and it's first day. And there's an existing marketing team there. Like there's no leadership, but there's maybe a little bit of management. There's some mid-level folks. There's junior folks. Like, can you give me like the takeaway? Like, what would you do first if you were me? Or what would you make sure you didn't do if you were me walking into that existing team who's probably been there, some of them for years, and I'm like this new fractional person that's going in?"
The first thing I would do is get them all together. And I would ask them a simple question: how are things going?
Mm-hmm.
Then I would shut up and I would let each and every one of them talk for as long as they needed to talk to get pent up anxiety, animosity, whatever it may be, off of their chest, right? Because you give people a platform, a safe platform to talk, they will talk. And the less I insert myself into that conversation, the more information I will get. And then from that point on, I actually then ask them, how could we do this better? How would we work better? And that's where I would start to interject some of my philosophies around collaboration and how do we do product evaluations? How do we look at marketing campaigns? Right. How do we do synergies between all of those different things? So that's really what I would do.
Peter, how about you? What would you advise your friend to do or not do on day one?
I would advise my friend entering in as a new fractional CMO to earn the trust of the team that you're going to work with, because they probably have a better idea of what works and doesn't work, even though it might not feel like that when you look at their metrics. And make them feel comfortable by letting them know you're going to ask them to do less so they can get better results. Generally speaking, when you have a CEO who was unable to figure out how to make marketing into revenue, they're giving people lots of tasks instead of giving people goals. So a new team is excited to have a boss who is or a consultant who's going to give them goals instead of thousands of tasks. That would be my first piece of advice.
That's good. That's good. All right. So let's invert it like one more time. All right. It's the last time I'm going to do this for you guys, I promise. You're not the fractional CMO, or you're not the friend of a fractional, right? You're not the fractional CMO now. Now you're that junior or mid-level person who's on the marketing team. All right. You got the announcement. Peter's been hired. Rick's been hired. You Google what a fractional CMO is because you never heard of this before. And now that person's showing up on Monday and you're showing up on Monday. What are you thinking about? Like, what should you do, or what should you like ask, or what should you keep an eye out for as the junior or mid-level marketing person and not the management or leadership person? Peter, let's start here. Go back.
I am a risk-prone type of individual, so I would invite that fractional CMO to audit everything that I've done and let them know that I'm excited to learn from them and support them in any way. I feel like an audit will get that fractional CMO to trust you and realize that you're on the same team and you want to row in the same direction.
All right. And Rick, what do you think if you're that junior or mid-level marketer?
I've agreed with everything Peter said up to that point, this question. I'm going to ask, is my job in jeopardy? I'm going to ask, what do I need to do better performance? Is there anything that you've seen? Can we collaborate? Can we do things together? I mean, when it comes down to change in any organization, the first thing, whether they admit it or not, the first thing people think of is it going to affect me? Am I going to lose my job? And I like open and honest environments. And I would appreciate if a member of that team said that on my day one.
Okay. Both of you, I think, are assigning a lot of courage, and I like it. A lot of courage to these general marketing folks who, are sort of dependent on that. I have this is a question I don't think I've ever asked on a podcast before, but I'm now a little bit intrigued, given what you've both said. Okay, so here it is. You are both fractional CMOs. I'm not a fractional CMO, but you're both fractional CMOs. You also know lots of fractional CMOs. Me too. I tried to add it up last week. I think I personally know at least 300 fractional CMOs. Like I could email them or pick up a phone, right? In what percentage of cases do you think that one of their duties is to sort of thin out or realign or, burn down and build up a marketing team? Like it's not that common, right? I mean, you shouldn't assume if you're already on a marketing team that the fractional CMO has been hired to just cut everybody and then start over or anything like that. Right? They're not hatchet jobs normally. What percentage do you think?
You want me to go first? Or?
Well, go ahead.
So I've been that guy.
Yeah.
I mean, I was hired to evaluate an entire department, and I was hired to look at inefficiencies. I was hired by the CEO as well as the HR director to do that. It's one of the least desirable engagements any fractional CMO would ever want to have because you're dealing with people's livelihoods. Right. But you have to put yourself in a mindset of you were hired to do what you believe is best for the business. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's my least favorite engagement, but I've done several of them.
Yeah. And then Peter, what do you think? What percentage of the time?
The majority are not like that. I would say in my engagements, 10 to 20% that is offered on the table, 10 to 20% it's insinuated, but they don't want to say it. And a couple of the cases, it has not been offered. It hasn't been insinuated. And I found out that a part of the team needs to be clipped, and it's often the sales team. The sales team's been blaming marketing for a long time. And right. I get to know that the marketing, they've been working their butts off, and sales isn't sending emails or following up. And so it's not as often as people are afraid of.
Yeah, I didn't think so either. Okay, so Peter, let's wind down by let's go right back up to the board or CEO level, okay, for the last question. We've, as a company and as a leadership team, we've made a commitment that we're going to bring in a fractional CMO. This might be our first CMO of any stripe ever. It happens to be a fractional CMO, okay? Should we be looking at that 1-year engagement as sort of a 1-year sprint or as the first year of a marathon?
I think that leadership should think of it as a marathon, mm-hmm. and the fractional CMO should think of it as a 5K or a mile race, because they start off by telling you that they start off by telling you have 6 to 9 months where they want leads to be attributed to the work that you're doing, and within about a month they forget that they gave you that timeline. Mm-hmm. So run fast your first month or your 2 months when you're trying to figure everything out is definitely a sprint, and then everything else afterwards should be pretty easy once you've set up the processes.
And Rick, from the company's point of view, is a 1-year fractional CMO engagement a sprint or a marathon?
It's a little of both in my experience. I mean, I always, when I'm setting up my scope of work, I'm always putting milestones and applying them to months or quarters. And there's always an element of this where it's called continued success, where the engagement should continue to see future success. It's, unless you get into a situation where the company's like, great, thanks, we got all your stuff, we understand, we're going to do it, we're successful, go. It's not really ever like that. So I look at it as an initial sprint with milestones, and then you have a marathon.
All right, guys, this has been very enlightening for me, especially the Hatchet Man thing. I don't know why I'd never asked that before, but
it's a horrible engagement. It's just terrible.
I've been in corporate management twice where I had to lay off people, and it's like it's the worst day of their year and the worst day of your year. Yeah, not good. Okay, so Rick, who should contact you, and how should they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm in the Bay Area in California, so I get to work with a lot of startups. So that's really kind of my sweet spot right now in the tech healthcare industry.
Right.
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm open. You can reach out, connect to me. collabconnect.com. That's our website. You can read more about us, and we'd love to help.
All right. And Peter, who should contact you and how?
CEOs who feel like they have enough marketing data, but they don't know how to act upon it. You can find me on my website and get a free audit at strategicpete.com/audit, or I'm on LinkedIn every single day. I don't think that there are any other Peter Murphy Lewis's on LinkedIn, so you can find me there.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being here. This has been really enlightening for me. All right. Thanks. And thanks for watching. See you guys.